They are not ordinary street gangs. They are the nightmare of an entire continent. On one side is Mississippi 13, ruthless and unwavering, enforcing ironclad discipline, stretching its tentacles from the US to the heart of Central America. On the other side is Barrio 18, larger in numbers, more flexible, controlling every street, every neighborhood with pragmatic tactics. Two gangs, two opposing models of power, yet both share the same ultimate goal: money, blood, and domination. Who is truly stronger? Does MS-13's military-style discipline secure its long-term dominance? Or is Barrio 18's adaptability the key to everlasting power? What is more terrifying? Blatant violence or an enemy lurking in the shadows? And is this merely a battle between street gangs? Or the inevitable consequence of a society riddled with injustice, where crime is not the problem, but the system that breeds it? Do you really know who controls the underworld? Los Angeles, where the American dream is not for everyone. In the dark alleys, where the police rarely set foot, Central American immigrants arrived here hoping to escape war and poverty. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. In the 1980s, the Salvadoran immigrant community was pushed into violent neighborhoods dominated by Mexican gangs. Immigrants were not only discriminated against but also hunted, beaten, and robbed. No one stood up to protect them. No police, no government. So, they protected themselves. A small group, initially just a few young men, decided to form an alliance to resist this oppression. They called it Mara Salvatrucha, a name combining Mara, meaning gang, and Salvatrucha, a term referring to the guerrilla fighters who had fought in El Salvador's civil war. They had no idea that from a self-defense group, they would become one of the most brutal gangs in the world. On the other side, Barrio 18 was born in a different way. Initially, it was not a Central American gang but a group of immigrant youths from various backgrounds: Mexicans, Guatemalans, Salvadorans, and even Asians. They were also oppressed by more established gangs. And to survive, they banded together, fighting for territory. But from the very beginning, Barrio 18 had an expansionist mindset. They did not discriminate by ethnicity or limit membership, as long as one was willing to fight and remain loyal. That is why, unlike Mississippi 13, Barrio 18 exploded in numbers, quickly becoming Los Angeles' first multi-ethnic gang. From two groups of young men trying to survive, MS-13 and Barrio 18 gradually became true machines of violence. But their paths of development were entirely different. MS-13 chose a tightly organized, highly disciplined structure, while Barrio 18 expanded rapidly, recruiting more members but lacking the strict control system of Mississippi 13. This difference in structure set them against each other from the start. MS-13 operates like a paramilitary organization. Every member must follow strict rules, with clear ranks and high-ranking leaders overseeing all activities. No one can leave Mississippi 13 without consequences. If a member betrays the gang, the only punishment is death. Notably, MS-13's governing council is not based in the US but in El Salvador, where high-ranking criminals continue to run the network from prison. Barrio 18, on the other hand, is different. It does not have a supreme leadership council or a strict hierarchical system. Each group, clica, operates almost independently, as long as they remain loyal to the Barrio 18 brand. This structure makes recruitment easier but also results in less discipline. While Mississippi 13 can control every move of its members, Barrio 18 functions autonomously, with different rules in different areas. So, which gang is stronger? The truth is, there is no absolute answer. In terms of organization, MS-13 is superior. But in terms of expansion, Barrio 18 is a phenomenon. MS-13 is more brutal. But that also makes it a bigger target. Barrio 18, being more decentralized, is harder to dismantle completely. However, the strength of a gang is not just about organization. It is also about how they build their image and instill fear. And this is precisely why these two gangs are not just street criminals but have become global symbols of violence. Imagine you are walking down a street in Los Angeles or San Salvador. A man approaches, his face covered in tattoos, a demonic skull on his forehead. The words, MS-13, running down both cheeks. strange symbols on his neck. You immediately know, this is Mississippi 13. And what's even more terrifying is that he knows you have recognized him. MS-13 is not just a gang, it is a brand of terror. Tattoos are not merely street art, they are a lifelong commitment. A mark that signifies total devotion to the organization. There is no way out. If someone bears the insignia of Mississippi 13, it means they can never betray, never leave. Barrio 18 also has tattoos, the number 18, the symbol 18, or even 666 inches, since 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. But they do not have a culture of fully tattooed faces like Mississippi 13. Some high-ranking members of Barrio 18 choose to remain more discreet, keeping a lower profile. This allows them to blend more easily into society and avoid excessive police attention. This difference is also evident in their initiation rituals. Both gangs have the jump-in ritual, where new members are brutally beaten by their peers to test their endurance. But Mississippi 13 has a far more terrifying rule: to rise within the ranks. One must commit murder, not for money, not over a dispute, but simply to prove loyalty. Barrio 18 is not as extreme, but similar challenges exist. New members must be ready to fight, ready for violence. However, due to weaker internal control, different Barrio 18 factions may operate in their own ways. So, between these two gangs, which one is the more terrifying symbol? A structured entity like Mississippi 13, where every member is bound to a system of death, or an organization like Barrio 18, where no one can control all its factions? One is built on iron discipline, the other on overwhelming numbers. One thrives on public fear, the other on hidden threats. And this very opposition has driven them into an endless war, where only blood and violence determine who survives. Drugs are not just a source of income, they are the lifeblood of every criminal organization. Without drugs, there is no power. Without power, there are no gangs. MS-13 and Barrio 18 both understand this. But the way they participate in this market is entirely different, reflecting the core nature and survival strategies of each. One side controls the supply chain, collaborating with major cartels and building a transnational transportation network. The other dominates the streets, ruling over neighborhoods, turning every alleyway into a distribution hub. In the underworld, there is no right or wrong, only who makes more money and who survives longer. MS-13 is not just a drug-dealing gang. It is an essential link in the global drug distribution system, acting as a bridge between Mexico's major cartels and the massive consumer markets in the US. They are not street dealers. They are the enforcers of trafficking routes, ensuring that cartel shipments reach their destinations without interference. From Colombian cocaine and Mexican heroin to methamphetamine produced in Central America, every type of drug can pass through MS-13's system. They control borders, coordinate shipments, and use routes that are difficult for law enforcement to track. This is why powerful cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation are willing to work with MS-13. Because they are not just a gang. They are a part of the global drug economy. But controlling the supply chain comes at a cost. The US government does not see MS-13 as just an ordinary criminal organization. They classify it as a national security threat. The FBI, DEA, and international law enforcement all consider Mississippi 13 an enemy to be eradicated. This has led to intense crackdowns, with many high-ranking members being arrested or deported back to Central America. Yet, no matter how aggressively they are suppressed, MS-13 persists because they do not operate solely in the US. El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala are their strongholds, places where they are not just a gang but a true power that can rival the government. In contrast, Barrio 18 does not aspire to control the supply chain. They do not collaborate with major cartels or manage transnational trafficking routes. Instead, they focus on retail markets, controlling every street, every neighborhood, ensuring that not a single pill or bag of drugs is sold without their approval. Barrio 18 collects taxes from small-time dealers, protects drug-selling hotspots, and maintains dominance in the areas they control. While Mississippi 13 profits from transportation, Barrio 18 profits from every gram of drugs sold on the streets. because they do not have deep ties with the cartels. Barrio 18 is not as heavily targeted by authorities as Mississippi 13. They do not run massive trafficking operations or expose the scale of their organization to law enforcement. This allows them to survive more easily, face fewer crackdowns, and infiltrate areas where Mississippi 13 cannot. However, the downside is that they do not have the massive revenue streams that Mississippi 13 does. Retail drug sales bring in far less profit than the immense sums earned from trafficking. This is why Barrio 18 relies on additional sources of income: robbery, extortion, protection rackets, and even human trafficking. This difference in business models has led to constant clashes between MS-13 and Barrio 18. Not just over territory but also over control of the drug market. In major cities like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, shootouts and assassinations happen not just because of personal rivalries but because of millions of dollars in annual profits. Losing a neighborhood means losing thousands of drug sales and hundreds of small-time dealers no longer paying protection money. For Mississippi 13, a disrupted trafficking route can cost millions. For Barrio 18, losing a neighborhood means losing power. And in this war, no one wants to be the loser. But the problem does not stop there. The U.S. policy of deporting criminals has made the situation even more complex. When deported gang members return to Central America, they do not abandon their gang life, they continue operations, expanding territory, turning El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala into new battlegrounds for the drug trade. And no matter how hard these governments try, they cannot fully control the situation. The police are too weak. Corruption is too widespread, while the gangs have enough money and weapons to maintain their dominance. So in the end, who is winning this war? MS-13 may be richer and more powerful, but they are also more heavily targeted. Barrio the 18th may be more flexible and harder to eliminate, but they do not have the same financial resources as their rivals. One side controls the supply chain, the other controls the retail market. One is a key player in the global drug economy, the other rules the streets. And this war, no matter how long it lasts, will have no end. Two gangs, two paths, but only one certainty: the violence will never stop. Whether it's MS-13 with its iron grip or Barrio 18 with its unchecked expansion. They are not just America's problem, they are a global challenge. Who do you think is the greater threat? Which gang has the potential to dominate in the long run? Or is the government the only real force capable of deciding their fate? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep uncovering the darkest secrets of the underworld.